Hey everyone, this review is on the movie Rain Man. So the plot of this movie is this guy named Charlie Babbitt, played by Tom Cruise, is this car dealer who gets a call during work one day and finds out that his father died and he left his inheritance to his older brother Raymond, played by Dustin Hoffman, who he never knew he had. And he meets up with him uh, back at his home in Cincinnati, and he finds out that he's on the autism spectrum. Particularly, he has savant syndrome, which is a pretty low functioning end of the spectrum. So when he when they first meet each other and they start to interact with each other, he finds them pretty hard to deal with because he's pretty difficult sometimes to work with. Sometimes the slightest changes in his routine, he kind of causes a freak out. Sometimes he notices the most small details, which at times can fascinate him, but sometimes they don't really help in a lot of ways. But then he finds out that he has a really good talent at card games, especially playing poker. And they even go to Vegas and LA and they find out, and Charlie kind of uses Raymond to, make a lot of money, but he also finds out that maybe it's pretty selfish of him, and he tries to bond with his brother, and he tries to just love him the way he is. Yeah, this is a really good movie. It's really good. It's kind of outdated in some ways, but at the same time, it's in the context of the movie, it's not particularly insensitive because you would think a movie on about someone on the autism spectrum would, be unsettling to those who are on the spectrum, saying it's not an accurate representation, and it's not totally. In some cases, it kind of is, but it's not. Of course, it's not realistic because it's a movie. But I can understand because the thing is, I know if this movie came out today, I think some people would probably hate it just because, Raymond is not played by a real autistic guy. And yeah, I know that it's kind of a thing. But yeah, I guess this movie did kind of impact people's views on the autism spectrum. Like, people particularly are smart in a lot of, um, different ways. Like, maybe not in the most normal, mundane aspects, people like routines aren't really are pretty difficult with, but the most smallest details and cases some people are really knowledgeable with. In this case, so the movie Raymond is really good at counting cards, and yeah, any this movie did kind of impact a lot of movies where people are on the autism spectrum, they kind of have a speech problem and talk like this, and yeah, I get it. Some people on the autism spectrum do have speech problems, and sometimes they are only particular have particular knowledge with certain things. But the thing is, while this movie is great at establishing that, I think a lot of movies should that showcase people on the autism spectrum should know they don't all act like that. Like, not everybody is like that. Because it's called a spectrum for a reason. But that aside, it's a really good movie. Yeah, even though Dustin Hoffman, he's obviously not, he doesn't have savant syndrome in real life, obviously, but he plays it pretty well, actually. It, it doesn't really seem like a caricature of an autistic person. A lot of times, it actually does feel like you're watching a real person. And in fact, he did win an Oscar for this role, and it really helps. And him and his chemistry with Tom Cruise really are very good, and they really do feel like you're watching uh, a real pair of brothers. It doesn't feel like you're just watching actors playing characters. Tom Cruise, he is really good in the movie. I think this is a pretty one of his most underrated performances. I mean, I love Tom Cruise. I think he's a very great actor, and we all know him in action movies like Mission Impossible, Top Gun, all that kind of stuff. But I think in drama movies he's really good. I think he's very I mean, in the movie he's kind of starts off as kind of a you know control freak. He's well, not really, but and he can get very irritated a lot of times, especially when he's not used to a brother that is very different from him in a lot of ways. But he's not mean. like it's not done in a mean spirited way. Like it actually feels like how brothers are. Like siblings, they love each other no matter what, but sometimes, there are just some things that push your buttons, and that's exactly what it's like. And their chemistry is very good together. Like they sometimes, yeah, they bicker, but a lot of times you actually feel their love, and I think it's really, really good. Like they both work really well with each other, and I think that really is what makes this movie really worth watching because the two main leads are done very well. And yeah, it is a drama. It's a drama comedy. There is some humorous moments. Like there's this one scene where they're driving on the road and and Raymond says that like he's not wearing his underwear he because they're not boxer shorts because he always wears those. And of course Charlie's saying like, you don't, what's the difference, underwear is underwear. But then he goes on like a long detailed explanation of where he specifically gets his underwear, and he needs to go to Kmart back in Cincinnati. And Tom Cruise just has a huge freak out. Like I get it, like I know autistic people, a lot of times they have strict routines, though a lot of times I think it's something I think a lot of people really don't teach a lot of autistic people that I think would really help is that they should slowly start to teach people that not everything is like how you want. Like you shouldn't expose them to repetition at an early age because lots of the times it's just going to stick with them. So I think exposing, people on the autism spectrum to lots of aspects in life pretty early, I think that really would help. So yeah, like I'm not saying like, routines are bad. It's just, stuff like that is kind of helpful. Like it does in a lot of ways, yeah, it is accurate to people on the autism spectrum, despite that obviously, like I said, Dustin Hoffman's not on the spectrum. And and a lot of the scenes where he's counting cards, like it doesn't feel like he's just, a guy with, a mental condition that just is only good at one thing. There's a lot of things Raymond is still really good at. Like he can memorize like the Who's on First routine. He can memorize an entire phone book. Well, not an entire one. At one point he says he only got to like the letter G, which like yeah, sometimes autistic people like the little differences they can notice, and that's makes them quite unique from, a bunch of other people who aren't on the spectrum because sometimes the little things can make a big difference to them. So I think that's a really accurate representation of it. Like I don't know, like this is not an educational movie. This is if you've never heard of, savant syndrome or even just people on the autism spectrum in general, like this is not like an educational movie to like watch, but it's still like, a very heartwarming, funny, very likable movie. It's some stuff is kind of outdated, like in terms of how people react to the autism spectrum, but nothing offensive. Like this movie isn't offensive really, because I mean, like if you're autistic, like nothing in this movie is really bad. It's very heartwarming, especially if you have a brother. I think lots of scenes are really gonna, tug at your heartstrings, and it has the right balance of heart, humor, likability, great characters, and amazing performances, and it just makes it all around a really good movie. So, yeah, if you haven't seen Rain Man, I highly recommend it. It's a very good movie. So, yeah, that's just wanted to get a review. I haven't done a review in a while, so I guess why not? So, see you next time with whatever I got up my sleeve. So.